Next, let's talk about insert mesh brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that floor off, and with the eyeball subtool selected, you can either alt tap it or you can go over here and select it in your stack by touching the nameplate. You can just go through here, you can hit delete, and now you don't have any more eyeballs. So let's talk about insert mesh brushes. Go to BI, and that's going to narrow it down to ZBrush's default insert mesh brushes. We're going to get into insert mesh curves in a bit, but for now, let's go over here to insert mesh primitives, not the H primitives, that's something else we'll get into later, but IMM primitives, we'll go ahead and touch that one. And you're going to see up here, we have access to a bunch of primitives. Also, if you hit the M as in Michael Pavlovich, you can pop this window open. So if you want to insert a capsule, you can, or you can change your mind and you can say, okay, let's insert a sphere. So we'll choose Insert Sphere 32, and we have the nose ring selected. That's perfectly fine, and I'll get into reasons why that's fine in a bit, but let's just for simplicity's sake, we'll go ahead and select the head subtool, and then we'll go ahead and drag out the eyeball. So you're going to see by default, what happens is you dragged out a sphere. If you keep dragging out on the head, you're going to drag out more spheres. Let's go ahead and undo that. So here's our eyeball sphere that we dragged out. If you undid one more time, that's okay, just re-drag it back out. And you're going to see everything gets masked. Where that is under the brush options. And again, if you don't have this open, just double click this divider, take your brush menu, grab the white dot and throw it over there. Underneath auto masking, you're going to see auto mask mesh insert is turned on. That's global, so any insert mesh brush is going to behave this way. It's really useful because when you first apply something to your object, you may want to reposition it right afterwards. So what you can do is just hit W and you can just move this thing back into place. Now, if you turn on polyframe, you're going to see the I-32 is kind of looking right at us, so we can kind of use this rotate to kind of rotate these eyes and treat them a little bit more like an iris in your eyeball. So we can go ahead and just move this back into place. There we go. Hit Q to go into draw mode. And again, W hits toggles on move mode, Q toggles on draw mode, so we're out of gizmo mode and now we're back in sculpting mode. Now, one thing I do want to mention, when I hit W and I go in here and I uniformly scale, see how it's scaling like towards the middle of the object and then away from the object? Generally speaking, especially when we're talking about like eyeball placement, we don't want to scale it out and have it go away from our head, right? So what I'm going to do is turn on this LSim, that's called local symmetry, and now when I scale, it'll do a symmetry just on this local axis. If you don't get what that means, if you turn your floor back on, basically you have this quadrant right here, and it contains a negative x and a positive x object. With this off, it's treating these eyeballs as if they're one object here. So if I hit W and I scale this down, it's going to scale towards the middle and then scale out. So they're both behaving as if they're one object. If you turn on LSim, that's going to treat them as objects on separate sides or in their own separate local quadrants. So it's going to look at their local bounding box and scale accordingly. Very useful when you're working across an axis. Let's go ahead and turn our floor off here. And if you control drag, that'll go ahead and unmask your object. And now you have a compound subtool, basically. You have a head with an eyeball. If you turn on polyframe, you're going to see the head is all one polyframe and the eyeballs are all one polyframe. So if you remember, you can hold down Control Shift. You go to select rectangle. You can select the eyeballs. You can select the head. And you're good to go.